Now, those of you that remember, last week, Rachel Maddow had this bullshit on her show from Bloomberg. It did this whole thing about some guy that Trump did business with. And there's a man suing this guy, and he was a mobster. And regardless of, like I said, you can say you don't like Trump. That, yes, was this guy that they're talking about tied into the mob? Absolutely. So if you could say, ew, it's immoral and unethical for somebody 10 years ago to get involved with the mob, fine. But the way that the law works is that you are not held accountable for the crimes of other people. They don't have any crimes with Donald Trump, although people like the Young Turks start talking about Donald Trump's crimes, even David Pakman. Oh, Trump's crimes. Well, what fucking crimes are they? They don't list them. They list stories like this that when you actually analyze them, and we're going to do that here, you find that there's no evidence for this. So they are, for example, making a headline, bombshell, Trump's ties to Russian mobster. And the story that this is based on, there's simply no evidence. And remember, the argument is not Donald Trump did business with people who were immoral. Their argument is that somehow Donald Trump has a relationship with Russia, a business relationship, that they exchanged money or goods or whatever for Trump to get into power, to become president. Oh, we'll help you win the election if you do this or that. There's no evidence for any of this shit.
We've got a bombshell today, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump's ties to Russia through Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump's ties to Russia through his...
Now that's ridiculous because his article that he's basing it on is this one in Bloomberg, okay? And this one, I mean, this is a long fucking article, Trump, Russia, and a shadowy business partnership. And it goes into the life of this mobster who has a man here, this man here, suing the mobster. And that man claims that during this time, I guess it was, I don't know, like 10 years ago or so, they said, well, you have a situation where there was this group for money, and they were like, no, let's use this other group because that other group is tied to Putin. Oh, wow. And then buried in this long-ass fucking article is this. Chris says, this is the guy making the claim, the whole fucking thing is based on this. Chris says he doesn't have financial records showing that Russian President Vladimir Putin had a connection to the FL group and that his own knowledge is purely anecdotal. And yet, David Pakman, MSNBC, the Young Turks, all of the corporate outlets report this as if it is true. There's zero fucking evidence for it. Not only is there zero evidence, there's no evidence Mueller is even looking into this. This is simply some guy at Bloomberg who has done articles about Trump in the past, who I believe wrote a book about him, thought, okay, well, let me tell this story about this guy right here, who is a mobster, or is at least tied with the mob. And since, you know, there's no law against doing business with someone, doing legal business with someone with a questionable background, since that's not illegal, we have to somehow make this story either show a crime or somehow tie it to Putin. So we'll just say, hey, this guy is saying, or the guy himself is saying, yeah, Putin was involved. Do you have any evidence? No.
His associates hiding meetings that they've had with Russian diplomats. This is a totally new and different and very disturbing possible connection to Russia for Donald.
Oh, possible connection. Okay.
Trump. It appears that Donald Trump was part of a fraud and money laundering operation connected to Russia.
I love how he phrases things. It appears that Donald Trump was part of a money laundering operation connected to Russia. I love that. That's just such frankly, that's not even like using propaganda phrases. That's just outright lying, pretty much. I mean, there's no evidence to this. There is no evidence. And, You just are making statements, and you think that I mean, I guess you can technically make these statements. And, you know, it's almost like a child. What's happening with people like David Pakman and Sam Seder is that what happened is at some point they decided to lie. And when you have a big platform, you don't get disciplined for the lies as much, because you can withstand a lot. Because when you build a huge platform like this, you're going to get people that are loyal no matter what, or they're liberals or people on the left that are absolute full-blown, whether it's Clinton supporters or whatever. They're going to believe whatever you say. So when you're not disciplined for the lie, you feel like, well, I'm getting away with it. And they are getting away with it. David Pakman has not suffered any sort of consequences other than public rebuke, other than losing credibility among people who are intelligent and people who are paying attention. But at some point, I do believe that with the fall of the corporate media, there is going to be a new group of people that are telling the truth in the media, and eventually those people, it will take time, will overtake the viewers, because whether they want to admit it or not, independent media that is not full of corporate narratives are slowly taking viewers away from these people. And it is slow, and you don't notice the impact when you have it trickle down. But eventually, it is going to make an impact.
We did a story back on March 30th about Donald Trump's different connections to organized crime. And there has been a major development to one of the aspects of that story. So I'll remind you, back in March, on March 2nd of the year 2000, early in the morning, New York City is the scene. 100 federal agents swoop in and arrest 11 people connected to the Russian and Italian-American mafias. And they had been under investigation for fraud, a $40 million scheme. And these Russian and Italian-American mobsters were operating what's called a pump and dump scheme. This is when you buy typically cheap stocks, penny stocks, stocks under $5 a share, really worthless companies. You then make a concerted effort to promote those stocks so that people will start buying them and drive up the price. And again, you can only really do that effectively with low value stocks. Then you sell the shares because, again, they're not really worth anything. And then ultimately people figure out what's going on and the share price crashes, but you've made out with a lot of money. Tons of victims. Many people lost their savings, their retirement money. Everybody who was arrested initially in the year 2000 was found guilty and sentenced, except for one man named Felix Sater, a Russian-American mobster who was sentenced only 10 years later with only a small fine and a slap on the wrist. Why such a light punishment? Well, he was working as an informant for the FBI and the CIA. And as I told you...
And this is a fascinating story. And I like mobster stories. And that's kind of part of the propaganda here. It's part of what Bloomberg did. And same with Rachel Maddow. They tell basically a Goodfellas story, not as good as Goodfellas, but they tell a real life Goodfellas story, and then try to tie Trump in because apparently there was investments in a Soho property or whatever, and that somehow that magically means that Donald Trump was involved in this fraud, and that somehow Putin was involved, even though no one has any evidence to prove it.
A few months ago, during these 10 years, Felix Sater was also doing business with a guy named Donald J. Trump, who happens to now be the president of the United States. Trump took on Sater as a senior advisor for the Trump Organization. They tried to build a hotel tower, might have been condos, in Phoenix, Arizona. Didn't pan out. They did build a tower in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which has since been foreclosed upon.
That's not illegal. I'm sorry, David, but you can say that it's unsightly. And 17 years ago, whatever, but it's not illegal.
And together they built the Trump Soho Hotel in Lower Manhattan. So Trump was clearly a pretty close business partner with a Russian mobster who was convicted for participating in a $40 million fraud and money laundering scheme. But all of that, everything I've told you so far.
So that's a connection? What kind of connection is that? Can you explain to me how a person that you are working on a hotel with, who did something completely unconnected to you, who was then working as a government informant, how that somehow means, because remember what he said in the beginning of this, that it appears that Donald Trump was part of a scheme. That's a lie.
Especially you, Pat, if you're taking notes over there. We knew everything I've told you so far.
I mean, frankly, that would almost be like saying that because David Pakman is on the YouTube platform, that it appears that David Pakman has something to do with ISIS, because ISIS is also on the YouTube platform. That would be ridiculous.
Here's what's new about all of this. Bloomberg is now reporting that while Trump and Sater were working together from 2002 to 2011, Sater was still actively involved in illegal activities, according to a new lawsuit. One of Sater's employees...
Was he involved with illegal activities with Donald Trump? Was Donald Trump engaging in any illegal activities? Do you have any evidence? I would love to see it. No? Oh, shocking.
From when he was working for Trump is named Jody Chris. Chris is now suing Sater, saying that different European governments and officials were secretly funneling money into Donald Trump's real estate projects, and that Sater was laundering that money in offshore bank accounts. The lawsuit also says that Sater was skimming money from the operation and dodging taxes and cheating Chris out of millions of dollars, which is why he's now suing him. When working for Sater, Chris said Sater would encourage him to only take investment money from people and companies that were close to Vladimir Putin. Trump knew he was working with a Russian mobster convicted of fraud and money laundering. The question, though, is, did Trump know that his projects were funneling money from sources close to Putin? And again,
you are asking whether or not Trump knew something that there's no evidence of. That's amazing. We're just going to pretend that it's a fact. We're going to ignore the part in the article where it said that there is no evidence for any of this and it was anecdotal.
Again, Pat, no sketchy connections between Donald Trump and Burundi. No unexplained connections from Donald Trump and his associates to the Ivory Coast. No undisclosed meetings with diplomats from Liechtenstein. It's Russia, time and again.
Isn't this an amazing tactic that David Pakman is using? This is where Propaganda Pakman earns his name. And that is, he is claiming that somehow it's fucked up that Donald Trump is having connections that the media is manufacturing. Isn't this incredible? The media is manufacturing this story based on a guy's hearsay and is holding Trump responsible for it. I love that. That's great.
Well, you know, when the Washington Post reported that Trump was personally under investigation for obstruction of justice by the special counsel Robert Mueller, what got left unnoticed and really didn't grab the headlines was that Trump associates were under investigation for financial crimes.
That's right.
What do you include in financial crimes? Things like fraud, money laundering.
That's right. And Jared Kushner's business dealings now also under scrutiny. So, yes, you are absolutely right.
I'm not sure, like, what planet you're on, but being investigated is not being guilty of anything. And even if Jared Kushner is genuinely guilty of a crime, then I would like to see him prosecuted and held accountable for it. But how does that mean that Donald Trump, unless Donald Trump is involved in the very same crime, if they have evidence of that, then that's fine. But you cannot hold people guilty for other people's crimes in a desperate attempt to remove someone from office just because your side lost an election, dummy.
Right about that. This could be an entire new front. If there were no Russia scandal already, this is a whole new story that now has opened up, and we're going to follow up on it.
I really feel like we should just create, I really think we could write a Russia story and get one of these stupid motherfuckers to cover it. I really do think that it's possible that we could just create, because it's very easy to do. Now, as much criticism as I have for David Pakman. I think he's completely discredited. I think he is a liar. But, you know, I just started noticing his videos after he made the attack on H.A. Goodman. And I knew there was a risk, because you're criticizing a new person, that I could get a bullying and harassment strike like I did when I criticized Jordan Chariton. So to David Pakman's credit, he has not filed one of those. And this is the thing. I don't need anyone like David Pakman to respond to my videos or pay any attention at all. I just need them to not be a fucking scumbag and do underhanded shit like try to get my videos silenced because they hurt your fifis. And with that said, David Pakman did this other video. This is very short, where he, I think, is at least showing that he doesn't take himself so seriously, that he's willing to make fun of himself, but he also does lie in this video. So let's just check it out real quick.
Here is one of the funniest things I've seen created around the show as a sort of meme or satire material. And I know that this was originally about something meant to make fun of me because I said the wrong thing according to who knows who on the internet.
Liar, you know exactly why this meme was made. This meme was made in response to the lies that you told about H.A. Goodman and the fallout from it. No one is buying that. You would do much better if you simply admitted what the context was. And this just shows how little you respect your audience, because you're about to show the Twitter handles of the people who were involved in this meme, or who the maker wanted to bring this meme's attention to. So stop the bullshit.
Doesn't matter. It is hilarious. Remember the movie Airplane? I believe it's from 1984, 82.
1980.
1980. Mm-hmm. Okay. The movie Airplane from 1980 with the great Leslie Nielsen. One of my favorite movies of the genre. And of the genre, I consider the Airplane movies, the Naked Gun movies, Austin Powers movies, that style of movie. There is a scene in that movie where passengers have to sort of slap sense into another passenger on the plane who's freaking out. I don't know who made this, but a Twitter user named Regento tweeted it out. Maybe Regento made it, maybe not.
Now, look at who is in this tweet. H.A. Goodman, me, Tim Black, LB the Realist, Styx Hexenhammer, Cernovich, Random Ransom Ride. Now, I think people just throw Cernovich in because they know if you get a retweet from Cernovich, that's a huge boost because he has a huge platform. But this is absolutely in response to that, and it just shows you that he believes that his audience, maybe he's right, I don't know. I mean, you look at his audience, there's been 17,000 views of this video and only 23 dislikes. So it seems as though, and especially when you look at the comments, he has an audience that is pretty solidly brainwashed into the propaganda. But I just want him to know that even though I will give you credit for not filing at least so far a bullying harassment strike, and you've allowed me to criticize you unfettered, I think the part of the problem here is that the standards are so low for behavior on YouTube that a person that simply doesn't do one of the most scumbaggy things you could possibly do actually has to be given credit for that. So we are dealing with very low standards. But I will say the fact that he hasn't done that, I give him credit for, because I've been particularly savage about him, and I stand by everything I say. I think everything I say about him, I can prove. But no one is buying, getting back to this, that you don't know what this was for. And is he serious, or is he just trying to play it off like he doesn't care? I really don't know about that.
And it says, David Pakman realizes that he's fake news. My face has been superimposed onto the freaking out passenger in the Airplane movie, and people are coming up and slapping me in the face. It is really well done. I'm going to play the clip. If you're only listening, you'll get the audio. The video really is what makes it. Check it out. This is proof, Pat, that some people have way, way too much time on their hands.
Yeah, especially if you have to go frame by frame.
I don't know how this is done. I don't understand the logistics of it. If it had to be done frame by frame, it is stunning. Anyway, let's take a look at it.
I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat.
So I'm not going to play the rest of the video. It's just like the clip. But so this could be his passive aggressive way to say, hey guys, it doesn't bother me. But I will say this. If you're not filing bullying and harassment strikes or claims, and you're not filing, why am I having so much trouble with the word filing? That's very bizarre. If you're not filing false DMCAs, then I really don't give a fuck whether or not this is passive aggressive or he truly doesn't give a fuck. In the climate that we're in, just the fact that he hasn't filed a bullying and harassment strike, I'll give him credit for that, even if I think that this video is dishonest. But anyway, just like a kind of a side thing about him.